Ashdown and Hatch live on the plaza. It's a senatorial debate. Rod Decker, the moderator, and candidates are here. They're ready to go.
The candidates are here. We've got a nice political crowd. My colleague Brian Millay, he has an introduction. Brian?
Thank you very much, Rod. It is Orrin Hatch, one of the most quotable and recognizable figures in the U.S. Senate, against Pete Ashdown, successful businessman and political newcomer.
My name is Pete Ashdown. I'm voting for U.S. Senate.
He was about 10 years old when Orrin Hatch ran and won his first term in the U.S. Senate.
Yeah, U.S. Senate, running against old Orrin.
Democrat Pete Ashdown is founder of X-Mission, Utah's first internet service provider. He can download humor on the stump.
Today, I can think of no worse appetizer to lunch than 24 politicians.
While networking on perhaps the fight of his life.
You know, I get a lot of people saying this is very quixotic of you and you're going up against the 800-pound gorilla. But I absolutely believe in presenting a viable challenge.
Can you win?
I do believe I can win.
Utah voters have sent Senator Hatch back to Washington 5 times. He's cultivated a national reputation, has a 30-year track record, and has a huge advantage in campaign money.
While Ashdown might spend $500,000 total in the race,
President of the United States.
Hatch raised that much in one day with this fundraiser headlined by President Bush.
Do you take this race seriously?
You're kidding? I've always run scared my whole life. And as long as I'm there, I'm going to work my guts off and do what's right. Look, I've never felt more enthusiastic about a race than this one.
Ashdown says Hatch has been in the Senate too long. Hatch says his tenure gives him more power for Utah.
The veteran senator against the political newcomer, Hatch versus Ashdown. It's coming up here on Channel 2. Rod.
You can see the crowd's getting ready. You can see the candidates are sitting there, and we'll be with them in just a few minutes. Mark?
Tall order for this guy to beat Orrin Hatch.
I think it'll be, yeah, it is. But I think it'll be fun. We're going to have fun tonight.
All right, Rod, we'll let you get up closer to the podium and speak with the candidates. Again, the debate coming to you live at 6:30, just a couple of minutes from now, right here on KUTV 2 News. Don't forget, KUTV is always on the web at KUTV.com. We've got news, weather, traffic information at your fingertips. Don't forget the debate coming up next right here on KUTV, live from the Main Street Plaza. We'll see you back here for 2 News at 9 on KJazz and 2 News at 10 o'clock. Have a nice night, everybody.
Bountiful Lincoln.
This is a 2 News Main Street Debate.
With us tonight, Republican Senator Orrin Hatch, seeking his 6th term in the United States Senate. Pete Ashdown, Democratic challenger, successful businessman on the internet. We have a live audience, and I'm supposed to tell the audience, you can hold up your signs, but not very much. Don't get them in the way of the camera. We have a distinguished panel here who will tell us about, will ask questions for us. First, we've got the Reverend Tom Goldsmith. Stand up, would you, sir, and I'll hold it. Okay.
Good evening, gentlemen. First, I just want to thank you both for making this opportunity available to the citizens of Utah. My Senator Hatch, and it's really about the huge cost of the war in Iraq to the American people. And I don't mean the $2 billion that's spent every month, but a cost in a deeper, more profound sense that really affect the lives of Americans. The first is the emotional cost. The tremendous increase of the number of deaths of American GIs in Iraq. Concerned deeply about the amazing disconnect between the reality portrayed by Bush and Rumsfeld as opposed to the reality portrayed
I'm going to give him a chance to answer. Okay. Sir.
Well, there are huge costs there, but nothing like we would have if we don't protect ourselves by going after them, and we're going after them overseas. If we don't do that, I guarantee you they're after a nuclear device. They'd like nothing better than to come in this country and blow up New York or Washington, D.C., where millions would be lost, and we're talking about trillions of dollars of costs. So we're fighting an international war against terrorism, and we can't let up. We've got to do what has to be done, and it's just one of those things we have to fight for.
But wouldn't you say, sir, there's a huge disconnect between that rhetoric and the reality that Bush and Rumsfeld try to portray with the reality that the military leaders who are actually there are trying to communicate to the American public?
Well, the military leaders who are actually there say that they can win the war, but we've got to back them. They have to have backing from here. Plus, let's just be honest about it. We lost 3,000 people in one fell swoop. And we'd lose a lot more if they come into this country with the weapons of war that they use, killing innocent human beings, because they don't care about civilians. They want to kill innocent human beings.
Mr. Ashdown, what would you do about the war in Iraq if you were elected senator?
The latest goalpost in Iraq is that we are trying to establish a democracy over there. And if we're trying to establish a democracy, then I believe we should exploit that democracy and ask the Iraqi people what they want done with their country. Now, you talk about the cost. Senator Hatch mentioned it may be $1 trillion cost. It is $1 trillion cost. The Iraqi and Afghan veterans of America have given my Senator Hatch a D rating in regards to support for veterans. That is the cost that we're not talking about. We're talking about supporting the people after they come back from the war, taking care of the injured. I stand for that, but I don't think the American people are being told the true cost of this war.
Do you believe that the senator is right when he says, well, let him talk, please. Do you believe the senator is right when he says if we don't fight them over there, we're going to have to fight them here?
I think it's a matter of global unity, working together to keep these extremists at bay. I do not blame all of Islam for a few people in the same sense that I did not blame all of Oklahoma for Timothy McVeigh.
If we get out of there, are we going to have to fight them here?
I'm sorry,
If
Rod?
we leave Iraq, are we going to have to fight them here?
I think we're going to have to fight them here regardless of whether we leave or stay in Iraq. They're coming for us. We need to have better border security. We need to have better port security. We need to beef up the armed services and the first responders in this country.
Gail Ruzicka of the Eagle Forum.
Yes. My question is for Pete Ashdown. I noticed on your website that you said that you thought abortion should be legal and safe, and that government should stay out. Well, first of all, it's not possible for abortion to be safe, because in an abortion, an innocent child dies, and certainly government gets involved in protecting life. They always have, and should protect innocent children, as they always have.
Gail, I agree with you. I think that we ought to work to reduce the number of abortions in America in the same sense that Mayor Seguini of Midvale worked to reduce the number of abortions in Midvale. 30 years have gone by since Roe v. Wade, and what has the Republican Party done except talk about reducing abortions? I think we need to work with communities, families, women, give them the options, give them the education, but not limit their decision to having a large government coming in and saying this is what you need to do.
Will you vote for a constitutional amendment to allow states or allow the federal government to restrict or ban abortions?
I believe amendments should affirm rights. I do not believe amendments should take rights away.
Senator Hatch, on that question, please.
Well, everybody knows that I stand very strongly for First Amendment and other rights in the Constitution, but I also stand for the rights of the unborn. I mean, we've killed over 35 million children through the vicious situation of abortion. Look, we don't have to be that way. I think abortion should only be to save the life of the mother or for rape or incest. And I think this is a very, very important issue, and it's going to decide whether our country goes forward as a moral, decent, honorable country or not. And I have to say I'm fighting against it every chance I have.
With 20% of rapes reported, I want to know how you're going to ask this small government to determine what is rape and what is not.
Do you want to answer that?
Well, I think we all know what rape is, and we're all against it. There's nobody in this world who would be for rape in my book except the rapists.
We have Sylvia Pena here. She has a question.
My question is for both of you. I'd like to hear about your thoughts on how we can reach a solution to the immigration problem that this country is facing today.
Let's start with Senator Hatch.
Well, first we've got to secure our borders. We can't do it by giving more amnesty. I was there in 1986 when we passed the Simpson-Mazzoli bill, which I voted against because they gave amnesty to about 3 million people. And I said there'd be 12 to 20 million if we do that. Now we have 12 to 20. So first secure the border, And then we've got to work on the tough issues, the compassionate issues, issues like people who've been here for years, children are born here, now citizens. Those are issues we've got to work on. But first, secure the borders so we don't have any more of this, and then expect people to live our laws. We're a nation of immigrants, but we're also a nation of laws, and we ought to live those laws.
Mr. Ashdown.
I think we need to fix the legal immigration system. The legal immigration system is broken, and we need to fix it so people who want to come here and obey the law and work and study in America can. But I also think we need to deal with some of these trade agreements that we put out, like NAFTA and CAFTA, which have destroyed economies in Mexico and Southern America and forced people to come here to find better work. We need fair trade instead of free trade.
Well,
we need fair trade that benefits both sides of the equation, benefits American workers and builds economies in remote countries.
Senator.
I'd just like to add, because of my experience, we now have a field office director, so we don't have to go to San Francisco to solve immigration problems. We now have an immigration court with all of its components. We now have better than 20 new immigration people, customs people who are helping us to protect our state and our nation.
12 to 20 million illegal immigrants now in America. If you get your way, will they all have to go home at least for a while, or will some of them just get to stay here, live here, and become citizens eventually?
Well, first of all, if we secure the border, then we stop others from coming in.
Okay, what about the ones
here?
But
then there are hard issues. There are millions who really should return home.
All of them or some of them?
I said millions who should return home. Some we'd have to work out because there are decent, honorable people who live in our communities, whose kids are citizens, and we ought to work that out, and I think we can. But first, if we don't secure the border, we're going to lose, and we, above all, shouldn't be for amnesty again.
Okay, Mr. Ashdown, all of them home or some of them stay?
I think what we need to do is put them in line behind everybody else who's been trying to go through this bureaucratic system for the last 10 years.
Do they get to stay here while they're in line?
I say they do stay here, and working with employers, working with the people that hire them, we can process them in a legal, efficient manner, and I think there should maybe be a fee if you came here illegally.
All of them get to stay or some of them get to stay?
I think all of them get to stay, but I don't think that's amnesty. I think that's putting them in line behind everybody else. And one more thing, Rod, I'm absolutely against the amnesty for businesses who have been taking advantages of these people who are just trying to find a better life. Let's give them the good wages that they deserve. Let's make them legal immigrants. Let's do it right.
Steve Crows from the Utah Foundation, an independent research group. Mr. Crows.
You know, this question's a little bit related to the last one because it has to do with international labor economies. But America's economy is strong right now, but we face some challenges like the loss of good jobs to other countries. And what ideas do you have for keeping America's economy strong, either through trade policy or tax policy, that would help good jobs stay in America?
Mr. Ashdown, we'll begin with you.
I talked a little bit about fair trade versus free trade. We have let the doors open on our economy and given it to big business so they can reap the profits on the backs of the American people. We have lost jobs all over this world. I don't agree with what happened with our trade with China. We need to restrict some of that. We need to pull some of those jobs back to America. But overall, in a long-term sense, we need to rebuild infrastructure in this country. Infrastructure like transportation, better education for our children, energy policy, allowing free and full energy policy that allows all the opportunities out there throughout America, I think will charge our economy like nothing before.
Senator.
Well, I'm doing all of that, but I think it's more than that. You know, the Republican economy, we have a 3.4% unemployment rate here in Utah, one of the lowest in the history of the country. We now have 4.7% unemployment rate, which is also one of the lowest since 1970. It takes tax relief, which is what we've done as Republicans. We put tax relief out there that basically has given people a right in their families to keep their own monies and to be able to spend their own monies. And I think that's what we've got to do. We've got to keep spurring this economy forward with tax relief and fair economic policies.
2 tax cuts that you voted for, Republican tax cuts, they will expire in 2010. Is a vote for you a vote to make those permanent?
A vote for me is to make those permanent and also to move on to further tax cuts as well, or tax relief for the American people who are beleaguered.
Mr. Ashdown, what are you going to do about taxes if you're elected?
The way I see tax policy on a federal basis in the United States today is it goes a little bit like this: middle class, upper class, small business, big business. Why are we giving tax credits to oil companies when they are making record profits? I want balance in our tax policy.
Higher taxes for rich people, same taxes for
lower
others.
taxes for middle America, better tax incentives for small business. Let's give America a tax break instead of the wealthiest 10%.
Well, let's understand something. The upper 1% of all taxpayers pay 34.7% of all the income taxes. The upper 5% pay 50% of all income taxes. The upper 50% pay over 96% of all income taxes. That means the bottom 50% pay less than 4% of all income taxes and, in fact, get monies from the federal government. So they're not being mistreated. The fact of the matter is that everybody, since the tax cuts and the tax relief that we've enacted, everybody has basically gone up in actual salaries in real terms over these last 6 years. It took the first 2 or 3 years to get it going, but now it's going well, and by all measurements, this economy is going very, very well.
Rod, when I talked to you on Labor Day, we talked about the fact that we had more jobs in America than ever before, but the wages were flat, that people weren't making more money. So I don't know where that statistic comes from.
Well, that's not true. That's not true. Actually, I have the statistics, and the fact of the matter is that in real terms, income has gone up for people, and there's no question people have more money at home. If those tax cuts are done away with, the average family of 4 earning $40,000 a year is going to pay $2,000 more a year. Now that's just crazy, and I'm against it.
I think everybody in Utah needs to ask the question, are you better off today than you were 30 years ago?
I'll be happy to have them ask that question, I'll tell you that, because I know they are.
Matt Cadams, a reporter with the Salt Lake Tribune.
According to recent polls, only 12% of Americans are satisfied with the actions of Congress this year. What can be done to restore confidence in our elected leaders?
Let's start with you, Senator Hatch. You're an elected leader.
Well, I believe, first of all, I think we ought to be fair to them. There's a lot of unfairness in our media today, the mainstream media from back there and on the West Coast and other areas. And I think if the truth is known and the real economic facts are brought out, we've got a heck of an economy. We've got a country that's moving ahead. We've got a country that's fighting and winning against terrorism. We've got a country that's keeping terrorism at bay. I mean, just think a few years ago, the Bader-Meinhof game, people thought that was going to continue on. The Red Brigades were going to continue on. We don't hear about them today because we defeated them. We've got to defeat terrorism, and I think unless we do, it's going to cost our economy even more.
We need accountability in Washington. We need to know what our elected officials are doing, who they're meeting with, and we need to know how our tax dollars are being spent. It's easy to do. I'm doing it in my own campaign, and I will do it when I get to Washington to every department of this government. Every department of this government should put their expenditures and budgets online for us to see. Every representative of this government should put their calendar online so we can know that they are working for us.
Brian Malahy, political reporter at 2 News and an anchor. Question.
Gentlemen, 46 million people without health insurance across the country by some measure, hundreds of thousands in the state of Utah. How do you fix it?
Mr. Ashdown.
Senator Hatch's own task force on health care came back and said what we need is a national health insurance. I agree with them. I agree with the people in America, 78% who want national health insurance. And as a business owner who has tried to absorb the costs of my employees' health care over the past few decades, I stand with small businesses and I stand with big businesses like Delta and GM that say we need national health insurance. But most of all, we need people with the political will and courage to go back to Washington and execute that.
Senator Hatch.
Well, then maybe you better start talking to your party, because they just defeated one of the best small business health care bills that we were going to pass through the Senate in years. We had a vast majority of votes. We just didn't have 60 because the Democrats wouldn't allow it to be passed. But look, I've worked on health care ever since I've been there. Most of the health care bills that work are Hatch bills. And frankly, I'm going to continue to work on them, and I'm going to be in a position where I can really make a difference and have made a difference. Because within the next couple of years, I'll be chairman of the Senate Finance Committee. That's the most powerful committee in the Senate. Do you realize what that means? California has 10 times the number of votes in Congress that we do, and yet when I become chairman of the Finance Committee, Bob Bennett becomes chairman of the Banking Committee. Can you imagine this state having that kind of power? That's one reason I'm running again, and I know one thing. I understand the health care problems of this country, and I've worked on them repeatedly every day I've been there.
Sir.
Senator Hatch, I am going to go back and talk to my party, and I am going back to lead my party and show them how things should be done.
Senator, is a vote for you.
By the way, I've heard that before. I've heard that before a lot of times.
I want to lead my party instead of follow my party, and I think I can do that because they have not given me a hand up here.
Is a vote for you a vote for generally the way things are now in health care? Minor improvements, some improvements, but no radical change.
Heavens no. One of the things that
radical change you want or what?
One of the things I've been fighting for very strongly that has the greatest biomedical hope for all of America is embryonic stem cell research. And it's no question that we've done adult stem cell research, and it was really the bill that I put through, cord blood research, that's helping some 72 maladies today. But I've worked on every aspect of health care. I understand it, and I think we have a lot to do, but we're going to have to get both parties together to get it done.
I agree with stem cell research, and I wish Senator Hatch had the leadership to get the rest of the congressional delegation in Utah behind him on that bill. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been vetoed.
No Child Left Behind is an educational initiative that's been very controversial in Utah. Mr. Ashdown, is a vote for you a vote to continue No Child Left Behind or to repeal it?
Rod, I was out in Kaleo, Utah last night, which is just about the smallest town you can imagine. A 12-student, one-room schoolhouse, and they are struggling with No Child Left Behind. It has been a disaster for educators in this country. It was written without the consent of a single educator or teacher. It has been the epitome of Washington arrogance, and I will fight against it, or I will fight to fix it.
Well, I personally...
Hold your applause, please. Okay.
I personally believe that education ought to be run by state and local people. On the other hand, the purposes of No Child Left Behind really are to bring kids, minority kids, African American kids, Hispanic kids, poor kids, give them a chance to really get proficient in math and science and other aspects. And I just noticed in our papers this morning that we're making some real headway in Utah because of the No Child Left Behind laws. I have real questions about it, but to be honest with you, the intentions are good. I think we have to make sure that the bill, when it comes up again, is written right so that we get rid of some of the defects. And hopefully we can give every kid in America an equal chance for a good education and not just play politics with this issue.
Reverend Goldsmith has another question. Stand up and say it.
Quick question about the erosion of civil liberties in this administration, to wit, just last week, the Military Commission Act, the loss of habeas corpus. What do you tell your constituents in Utah about the loss of human rights?
Well, guess what passed unanimously a year ago, August? It was the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act brought the inadequate anti-terrorism laws up equal to the anti-mafia laws. Every time we give police a little bit of authority, we give it to them so that they can stop crime. There's no greater set of crimes that we're going to face in the future than terrorism, and so we have to have good, solid laws. With regard to the commission bill, that was a grand compromise, bipartisan, overwhelmingly voted for, that basically is built to protect our country against terrorists, and anybody who doesn't know that is playing a very bad fiddle tune, is all I can say.
If tyranny and oppression ever take hold in this country, it will be in the form of the guys protecting us from a foreign invader, James Madison. I think the founding fathers would be appalled at what has happened to our Bill of Rights today. I think there was some good provision of the Patriot Act, but there were some very bad provisions of it as well.
Would you have voted against the Patriot Act that passed?
Yes, I would have. And I would have voted against the Detainee Act as well. I think America should be a beacon of what is right about humanity throughout this world. My father, who is in the audience tonight, told me that we had German prisoners of war staying here in Utah during World War II. And we knew what side these guys were on. We knew they were Nazis. And yet we treated them well, and when the war was over, they wanted to stay here in America.
America is a beacon of light and civil liberties. There's no question about it. But we also are a nation of laws, and we're going to fight terrorism, and we're going to use whatever tools we have to stop it so that you and our children don't have to die because of terrorist activity. And to make a long story short, anybody who doesn't realize that isn't really in the real world. Those bills have passed overwhelmingly with bipartisan majorities for the benefit of protection of our country, and by gosh, I believe those bills were right. I helped write the Patriot Act, and it has worked very, very well. We've caught over 400 terrorists in this country because of the Patriot Act. We've convicted over 260 of them. What would we have done if we hadn't had the tools to go after them?
Very quickly.
Name one terrorist that was convicted under the Patriot Act, the terrorist act that they were.
I can give you a whole bunch of them.
Okay, can you name one for here?
Oh, come on. Come on. I can name 261.
Jose Padilla was not. These other high-profile cases were not.
He may not have been.
Name one name. We have high-profile cases all the time.
How are they convicted? I can just tell you right now.
They were convicted through good law enforcement.
Okay.
No.
Senator,
no.
Okay. You have a question, Mrs. Ruzicka.
Yes, for Mr. Ashdown again. You didn't really answer my question. You just kind of skirted around it and didn't. The question is, how can you support making the killing of unborn children legal?
Oh, okay. Quickly.
Gail, I side with you that it's wrong to kill an unborn child. The problem is everyone in this area, everyone in the state does not agree on when life begins. And I don't think the government should make that decision. I think there needs to be more proactive work preventing pregnancy. And that means contraception, Gail. That means abstinence as well. I think we need to be realistic about what is happening in this country. And I argue that 30 years of Republican talking about abortion has done nothing for the situation.
Well,
it's been mayors like Joanne Sagini who have done things about it.
There's only one reason why we haven't won on abortion, and that's because it takes a 2/3 vote in the Congress to do it, and we can't get enough Democrats to help us on it. The fact of the matter,
it's been since 1989
let
since
me
you
finish.
proposed
Let me
that
finish. Let me finish. The fact of the matter is, it's a doggone terrible tragedy that 35 million unborn kids have been killed. And that's just, I don't care who you are. You have to draw the line. And it was 7 justices on the Supreme Court that saddled all of America with a decision that ought to have been decided by the elected representatives of the people, not by 7 unelected jurists.
It's been 17 years since that amendment was proposed, and you have more time to give amendments to give Arnold Schwarzenegger the presidency or take away the rights of people who want to have free expression. I want to know why this is the whipping post of the Republican Party, that they continually talk about abortion and yet they do nothing to prevent it.
I'm going to call it there. Okay, stand up, please. Question from Mr. Cruz.
That's pretty bad. I got to admit, that was a bad statement.
I'm all in favor of tax cuts, but I also think we have to balance them with spending cuts so that the budget doesn't go so far into deficit. What kinds of program or ideas do you have for bringing spending into control so we can get that deficit in control?
Well, the fact of the matter is that we were supposed to have a $400 billion deficit this year because of a variety of things, 9/11, Katrina, Rita, Hurricane Rita, the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. We've had to spend around $618 billion. If we had that money, we would have a balanced budget. But all of those things are important. Fact of the matter is that deficit has been reduced from $400 billion down to $248 now. Now that's still too high, but as a percentage of GDP, it's less than 2%, which is the lowest percentage of GDP deficit in the last 40 years. So we have been making headway in spite of all of the expenses that we've had to put up with, the war we've had to fight, the natural disasters we've had to fight, national disasters we've had to fight. Even here in Washington County, down in southern Utah, had to raise $66 million because of the flooding down there. But we've done, we've done well, but we have to do better, no question about it.
Mr. Ashdown.
$9 trillion in debt. We are saddling that debt to all of our children and our grandchildren as well. We talk about small government, we talk about fiscal responsibility. Where is it? Where is it? I say it's not here. Accountability again, Rod. When I hear about, I talk to soldiers coming back from Iraq, and they tell me things like their COs were replaced with 3 Halliburton people making 10 times as much as the CO was making. No accountability.
Are you going to vote for more revenues, higher taxes, for lower spending, or for both?
I vote for balanced taxes, and I think we ought to get it.
Is that higher or lower?
What does that mean?
That means the same tax revenue we're getting in now, but balanced across the board, so that small businesses, big businesses, rich and middle class are paying the same.
Revenue neutral reallocated.
I'm sorry?
Revenue neutral reallocated. Same money, different people paying it.
But we can cut the waste out of this government with accountability.
Name the biggest waste that you're going to cut. What's the biggest thing you're going to vote against?
Privatization of our public services. I don't see how that is benefiting America to have a no-bid contract going over to Iraq and wasting our money.
Senator, Can you name something you'll vote against, or can you talk about privatization quickly?
That I'll vote against?
Yeah, that you'll vote to cut. Is there something you're spending?
We have leveled funding on discretionary spending. That's 15% of the budget. That hasn't happened in years. We have basically gotten Medicaid, Medicare down to where it's only 7% gain, where it used to be 13, 14%. We've been working real hard to do these type of things, but in every case, every budget that's come up, the Democrats have tried to add at least $400 billion more. Now, I can just guarantee you right now, once they get back there, they vote in mass for more spending, more government, more taxes, less security, and look, anybody who doesn't understand that is really not living in the real world.
Quickly, we've got just a little bit of time left. The Sierra Club and other environmental organizations want 9 million acres of wilderness. Senator Hatch, you were on a bill for 2 million acres. A vote for you is a vote for how many acres of wilderness? Let's start with you, Mr. Ashdown.
A vote for me is a vote for working with local governments, people who want to control their own backyards, and deciding that outside of the environmental groups and the industrial groups, making Utahns responsible for that decision.
Quickly, Senator, how much do you want?
Well, I just agree with him. I mean, on that, if he wants to work with local governments, I do that all the time.
And on a rare note of agreement, we're out of time. Thank you very much for being with us, Senator Hatch, Mr. Ashdown. The public will decide on Election Day.